Hello everyone, I hope you're still having a great Sunday, and since you enjoyed that little skirmish between Rashid Najmuddinov and Tigran Petrosian, I thought I'd show you a game between Mikhail Tal and Paul Keres, also kind of a clash of styles. And this is actually their first encounter. This is the first time two of them ever played. The game was played in 1954. It was a team game, a team match between Estonia and Latvia. And of course, on board one, there was the magician of Riga, Mikhail Tal, and on board one for Estonia was the Estonian powerhouse, Paul Keres. And it's quite an interesting game, a lot of poison to it, and again, we'll see a very interesting clash of styles. So let's see this game. Tal has the white pieces, and he opens with d4. Knight to f6, we have c4 and g6. Keres goes for the King's Indian defense. Knight to c3, bishop to g7, e4, d6, this is the standard line, knight to f3, we have castles, bishop to e2, e5, and we have bishop to e3, this is the Gligoric system, so knight to c6, d5, knight to e7, and we have h3. Keres plays knight to d7, announcing that he's about to push f5. So Tal plays knight to d2, making some space here on the f file so he can push his own pawn after Keres pushes f5. We have f5, f3, and here you can either push the pawn to f4, maybe close the position. You can also capture on e4. You can ignore this completely and play something like b6, continue developing. Keres goes for f captures on e4. We have knight captures on e4, and here knight to f5. And this is an excellent square for the knight. It's not going to be easy to kick this knight away from f5. Of course, you can always push g4, but then you're kind of weakening the king side. So no reason to do this just yet. Bishop to g5 now, attacking Keres' queen on d8 and knight to f6. We have bishop to d3 and queen to e8, unpinning, and now this knight is definitely ready to capture this knight on e4, and then this knight is ready to jump to g3. So we have knight to e2 by Tal. Now this knight is guarding the g3 square, so after Keres captures this knight will still be protecting the g3 square. Knight captures, we have bishop captures and bishop to f6 now. Bishop captures, rook captures, and queen to d2. So far, it's a pretty equal game by both of them. Both players controlling some important squares. And here Keres plays c5. It's definitely a good move, trying to close the center, preventing Tal from pushing b4. But Tal doesn't like this. Here Tal plays d captures on c6, we have b captures on c6, and g4 now. Finally kicking that knight, as there's really no way to get rid of it unless you want to capture with the bishop, but then this bishop comes to f5, and again it's a very nice square for Keres' pieces. So g4, we have knight to e7, and now Tal castles. Maybe this castling move was a bit premature, as you can see, Tal can also castle queenside, so maybe improving the position first before deciding which way to go. But okay, Tal goes kingside castle because he wants to attack, so king safety comes first. Bishop to a6, now attacking the c4 pawn. We have b3, and here Keres pushes d5, and this is a very important move in the game. Tal has to figure out what he wants to do here. Does he want to capture on d5? Does he want to move the bishop? Let's see what happens if he captures on d5. If he captures on d5, then comes this queen to d7 move, pinning the pawn as the queen on d2 is undefended. And here the best move for Tal would be rook to f2. Preparing knight to f3, knight to c3, and then the rook will be defending the queen on d2. So after black recaptures here, now simply knight to c3, and the pawn on d5 is now attacked 3 times. You can't capture the bishop because Keres' queen is also undefended on d7. So rook to d8, rook to d1, and after rook to d6, now the bishop can be captured. So bishop to d3, bishop captures, queen captures, and at the end of this little skirmish, okay, maybe a6, preventing white knight from jumping to b5, but in the end the material will be completely equal, and Keres will have these two strong central pawns. Now, which side is better here? Probably black is a little better, but one important thing is that Keres is controlling all 4 important central squares. And there's an old saying in chess, he who controls the center will eventually win the game. So Tal doesn't like this. After d5, Tal plays queen to g5. Now going after Keres' undefended rook on f6. We have queen to f7 defending, and now bishop to d3. Here Tal offers a pawn. Well, he doesn't offer it immediately, but it will be a very weak pawn. D captures on c4, we have bishop captures, and now b captures on c4. And as you can see, this is a very weak pawn. Still, Keres can't capture it because the rook will still be undefended on f6. But here, Keres plays rook a to f8. Now he has this triple battery. On the f-file, the f3 pawn is very weak, as Tal decided to push that g4 pawn just to get rid of the knight. So although you can see that the g4 move was useful at the time Tal played it, now it really looks like a big weakness. So queen to e5, capturing a pawn. So for now Tal is up a pawn, but this doesn't really mean anything. And one reason, okay, I mean, you really don't have a better move than to capture this pawn. But one reason probably why Tal did it is because he was maybe considering Keres will capture on f3. If Keres captures on f3, then Keres basically is agreeing to a draw. Because after rook captures and queen captures, Tal can capture the knight, and now Keres has this queen to f2 check, and it's a draw by repetition. King h1, queen f3, and the queen can simply continue checking the white king. So after this queen to e5 move, Keres is not interested in a draw, rather he plays rook to e6, attacking Tal's queen, and also there's an undefended knight behind the queen. So here Tal has an option. Does he go queen b2, because the knight has to be defended, or does he go queen to h2? If he goes queen to b2, which was also an option, then after rook to e3, again attacking the f3 pawn, now 3 times, and also the queen is now attacking the c4 pawn. Knight to g3, rook captures, and now queen to e5. And now what do you play here? If you capture, then rook captures, and the knight on g3 is defending the rook. So queen to e5 is actually a pretty good move, defending the knight on g3, also harassing that knight on e7. So probably after queen to f4, queen captures, rook captures, rook captures, rook captures, and king to g2. Now you don't go for the c4 pawn, rather there's an even better move, rook to a3. Kind of paralyzing Tal's move on a1. You can't move it, you can't even move it with tempo on e1 to go for the knight, because rook captures on a2 comes with check. So it would be kind of an equal material, but it would be a better position for black, and in Keres' hands probably a winning position. So that's probably the reason why after this rook to e6, Tal decided not to go for rook to b2. He decided to go for rook to h2, queen to h2. This keeps the material on the board and leaves some chances. Rook to e3 again, going for the f3 pawn, also attacking the c4 pawn. We have knight to g3 now, and queen captures on c4. So here Keres wins back the pawn. We have knight to e4, and now comes queen to d4. As you see, the queen is now lined up with the king. The threat is rook captures, knight on e4. This will come with check. So rook a to d1, attacking the queen. And now comes rook to d3 check, opening up a discovered attack. And here Tal plays knight to f2, attacking the rook on d3, also adding more protection to the rook on d1. And here we have rook 8 captures on f3. Keres grabs another pawn. We have rook captures, and the knight of course can capture. The knight is pinned. And here we have queen to b8 check by Tal. King to g7, and now queen to c7, attacking the knight here. Although probably a better move was rook to e1, as this does activate the rook, also with a tempo, but for some reason Tal decided to go for queen to c7. We have queen to e3 defending. Now the queen is defending the knight, the queen is defending the a7 pawn, the knight from e7 is defending the c6 pawn, so everything is defended in Keres' camp. Queen to b7. We have king to h6, not allowing the king to stay pinned. Now the knight can move, and here queen to b1 by Tal. Rook to d2. We have queen to b3, offering an exchange of queens, and this is a very interesting moment in the game as well. Why did Tal offer a trade of queens here? Well, there really isn't a better move. I mean, you don't really have any other choices but to go for a trade of queens, and as this pawn is very weak, probably Keres will have at least one pawn advantage in the endgame, but they are isolated pawns, isolated A pawn, isolated C pawn, so maybe Tal could pick it up with the rook and the knight. It's hard to say, but here when Tal played queen to b3, this queen to b3 is an extremely poisonous move. Very sneaky idea by Tal, and this is what Tal had in mind. Tal had in mind that if queen captures, then pawn captures on b3. From b3, this pawn will be stopping Keres' a pawn and Keres' c pawn as well. And this is what Tal had in mind. If Keres tried to go for the pawn, rook to b2, then comes knight to e4. And if you capture it, then comes rook to f7, and Keres loses a piece. There's no way to defend it. If you move the knight, let's say knight to d5, you get g5, king h5, and the rook captures on h7, checkmate. So a lot of poison to this queen to b3 move, so Keres isn't interested in this. Keres plays knight to d5. He says, okay, I'm down with the queen trade, but we will trade on e3, not on b3. And here, again, capturing the queen probably would give Tal some chances because there's really not a better move here. But Tal isn't interested in this. Tal pushes g5. And g5 is again, okay, you can't capture it with the king. Obviously, if you capture it with the king, then you lose the game. Queen captures queen, knight captures, and then comes knight to e4 check, and picking up the rook. King h5, knight captures, and knight captures on f1. King captures, and Tal is up a piece. Probably winning this game. The king is close to this pawn. Maybe knight will probably be able to pick up the a pawn, and then this pawn will be promoted. Most likely. But after this g5 move, Keres played king to h5. Queen captures on g5 is also possible, but Keres, although he probably could have calculated this, he doesn't want to give Tal any breathing room. For example, after queen captures, you have to see that after knight g4 check, king h5 and queen to f3 threatening discoveries, you actually can play king to h4, and here Tal really doesn't have anything. It's a perfectly fine position for black, winning position. So after this g5 move check, Keres decided to play king to h5. So not giving Tal anything. Queen to b7. Tal now is threatening queen captures on h7 with check. Queen to g3 check. King h1 and rook captures knight. So Keres wins a piece, but he allows this queen captures on h7. So Tal plays it, queen captures on h7, king to g5, and here we have h4. Of course, you can't capture on h4. If you capture, then queen captures, king captures, and rook captures rook. Now, it's rook and pawn against a knight and three pawns. Better position for white. If Tal could win it, it's hard to say, but definitely after h4, Keres cannot capture it. So he played king to f6, and it was in this position that Mikhail Tal resigned the game. Why did he resign? Well, he's down a piece, he's down a pawn, and there's really nothing for him to try here. He can try some checks, but he saw that black will actually find a sanctuary on a6. For example, let's see some queen h8 check ideas. King goes to e7, queen g7 check, king goes to e8, now queen back to h8 check, king goes now to d7, we have queen to g7 check, king c8, now queen to h8 check, king to b7, and here if you play queen to g7, then king to a6, and there are no more checks. And if you try some rook b1 idea, rook b1 check, then again knight simply covers up, queen h7 check, king goes to a6, and there are no more checks in the position, and there is no defense against queen to h2, and this will be checkmate. So yeah, after king to f6, Tal resigned the game, and the first encounter between these two went to the Estonian Paul Keres. So yeah, I mean, it's a pretty cool game. I do hope you enjoyed it. Tal and Keres played a lot of games together. I think their all-in-all score is 8 wins for Keres, 5 wins for Tal, and 17 draws. And there is my favorite game between Tal and Keres actually ended in a draw, but it's such a magical draw. Tal manages to pull it off. It's a completely lost position, but Tal manages to trick Keres and like sacrifices 3 pieces for a draw. I will try to find that game as I think it's actually my favorite draw. But yeah, that's the game. I do hope you enjoyed it. I would like to thank Marco Yusuf, Malik Mostefai, and Nick Davies for a contribution to my channel. Thank you a lot. I really appreciate it. Thank you all for watching, and I will see you soon. And of course, you can always check 2 of my previous videos here. Forgot about that. I don't know what's with me today. Sorry. Yeah. Thank you all for watching, and I will see you soon.